This segment brought to you by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
We're back. Now Duane and Jason Manz discuss management and control of those annoying herbicide-resistant weeds.
Duane Toews joining you once again with Ag AM in Kansas, and a chance to catch up with Bayer Crop Science Jason Manz. Jason, we think about technologies and doing due diligence on our farms across the country. Weed resistance and dealing with difficult weed problems certainly has become very vogue in the last 5 years.
That is true. Weed resistance has become a hot topic for the American farmers, not only today, but it's going to be in the future as well.
Give us a little background on what led to some of these problems that growers are facing. We hear a lot of things out in the countryside about the number of different weeds that are becoming resistant to herbicides, and what's some of the background on why we end up in a position like that?
You know, when you look at the weeds that, from a resistance standpoint, it's from potentially letting the weeds go to seed and not controlling them in the fields that you have today. From a corn soybean rotation, you could be allowing those to go to seed or applying a herbicide. And it's not the effective herbicide to control those weeds today.
We think about some of those issues that growers from the Deep South all the way through the Corn Belt and into our area of Kansas as well. Specific weeds, pigweed and Palmer amaranth is one of the very first ones that became noted as being a problem. It appears that single mode of action and maybe getting a little bit lax on our herbicide control programs has put us in this position.
That is true, and it's one of those where you need to use an effective mode of action. I mean, there's a lot of products out there that have multiple modes of action in them, but if they're not effective to control those Palmer pigweeds that you're challenged with in Kansas, that's where your trouble is going to start. You need to make sure you use at least two effective modes of action. There was a study done by the University of Illinois that you're 83 times less likely to have the onset of resistance if you use two or more effective modes of action. So it's very key that the growers understand, what modes of action are in the products that they're using and ensure that they are effective modes of action to help control those weeds.
Thinking about working with their local crop consultant or the place of business where they're purchasing their chemicals from. Different names don't always mean different modes of action.
That is true. There's a lot of products out there that have different names, but they're the same mode of action. So just switching up the names isn't necessarily going to mean you're going to have switching up the mode of action. So it's very, you need to make sure you work with your crop consultant, you work with your local retailer to understand what mode of actions are out there and what mode of action you're using, not only in your cornfield, but what are you going to look at for your next year? Is it in your soybean fields? Is it in your wheat fields? What are the modes of action you're using from your crop plan, not only today, but potentially a 5-year plan?
You talk about that 5-year plan. It really is a situation where you need to look down the road, particularly in dealing with difficult weeds, to make sure that we don't set ourselves up to fail in years subsequent.
That is true. I mean, you want to make sure you have a good foundation herbicide out there that has two effective modes of action, but also looking at the future. What do you plan on doing? Is it a corn, soybean, wheat rotation, or what's your rotation going to be? And what did you use last year? Where were your hot spots in your fields that you had some weed escapes? And that's where your crop consultant and your local retailer can help you with choosing the best product and the best mode of action that you control those weeds to ensure that you don't have those escapes, and you're layering in your different residuals to control those weeds not only today but also long term.
All right, thanks to Jason joining us here on Ag AM in Kansas, thinking about the future when it comes to your weed protection program for your ranch and farm operations. Jamie, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Duane. Come back after the break for this week's Kansas Farm Bureau update.
Hello, I'm Dr. Frank Lyons from Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center here in Manhattan, Kansas. Darrell was one of our patients that we did about 7 months ago.
I dug trees by hand for years and years and years. In the process, I wore out my rotator cuff. But when I learned about this process, I thought if there's a way to get rid of this pain, then I want to do it. So we did it and it worked. I'm not going to go out and take trees with a shovel anymore, but I can do the things that I want to do now.
Well, it's been very gratifying to help people with their painful joints and other entities, and it's been especially gratifying to be able to help people who I know and have worked with and known for many years.